Hey there, my wedding planning friends, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe to get weekly wedding videos on wedding planning tips and advice. So this week I wanted to do a little bit more of an interactive style video, and I actually asked some of my past and current clients, as well as polled my audience on Instagram, which, side note, if you don't follow me on Instagram, make sure you do so at Emily Summer Studios so that you can participate in the questionnaires and the polls and all that fun stuff that I do to make these videos, and also see some fun behind the scenes and just work that I've done in general and continue to do on weddings in Montana. Anyways, so I polled my audience as well as my past and current clients on what the best wedding planning advice they've ever received was, and here are the results. So honestly, the responses I got were rather large, so I'm just going to compile the most popular responses that I got, or ones that I was seeing over and over again, as well as some of my favorite responses, and then I'll probably do another one of these videos in the future to really get everyone's responses out there. I also did a blog similar to this a couple months back, which, if you are unfamiliar with my written blog, I do have a blog called Ivory in June. It's just ivoryinjune.com, and you can go there if you like to read your wedding planning advice rather than watch it. And I've got some different content up there than what I post on my YouTube channel, so that's another great resource for you. I will put a link in the description below if you want to go and check that out as well. I do have a wedding planning advice from professional wedding planners blog on that website if you want to check that out. So here's what you guys and my past clients said the best wedding advice they ever received was. Number one, budget before you book. Yes, please listen to this. You don't want to be making any big decisions, or really any decisions at all, without really thinking through your entire wedding budget. Because if you think that you are going to go in with a $10,000 wedding budget and then you go ahead and book a venue that's $7,000, that doesn't leave you a whole lot of room to work with after that, especially when you still need to hire a photographer. Maybe there's a certain one in mind that you've had your eye on for years. That's your whole budget right there. So make sure that you're really thinking through who you're going to book, when you're going to book them, and what it's going to cost before you actually make those decisions, so that you don't end up having to either go massively over budget or totally scrimp on things that you really wanted to be able to spend more time and money on in the planning process. Another thing was having separate wedding emails. So this is brilliant, and something that honestly I didn't really think about until I was hearing it from you guys, that creating your own, a separate wedding email. So say like bobandsue@gmail.com or thesmithwedding@gmail.com, whatever it may be, so that you're creating this separate account where you can do all of your communication to all of your vendors. If you're going to wedding expos and entering contests and stuff like that, it's likely you're going to be entered onto email subscription lists. And so to have one email where all of those things are going to and all those communications are happening in one place, it's going to be a lot easier to manage those conversations. And when you're working off of a work email or a personal email and having that mixed in with all the wedding emails, it's easy to miss maybe an important contract that you're getting from a vendor or something like that. And so to keep all of that in one place is a really good idea. Also, bonus, you can just delete that email account when your wedding is over and you don't have to receive those emails anymore. All the subscriptions that you have subscribed to, you can just kind of delete and forget about, and your wedding is done and it's over. Another one that I got that was actually a really genius idea too is having some sort of numbering or organizational system when you're sending out physical RSVP cards. As you've probably discovered if you've planned a wedding, people kind of suck at RSVPing. And it's one of those things that you don't really realize how important they are until you're the one on the receiving end needing to get other people's RSVPs. So, RSVP people, but also, if you're sending out physical RSVP cards that you want people to fill out and return to you, even just numbering them so that when you're sending out a RSVP card to the Hanson family and they send it back and you either can't read what the names are on the card or they forget to write down their name, you know that you sent them out RSVP card number 5 and that's the card that came back in, so you can look at your list and say, oh, number 5 was the Hanson family, we're good to go. That way, in the event that you do get RSVP cards that are either blank or illegible, then you still know who that's coming from and can account for that, especially if you're having a plated meal and you need to follow up and find out what they want to eat and where they're going to sit and all of that good stuff. Another piece of advice someone said was to know your priorities before going in. And this is something that I always tell my clients and ask in the beginning stages is, what are your priorities? Maybe what are your top 3 priorities when it comes to your wedding? So that could be wanting to have the best, most fun dance floor and party of all time that your guests will always remember. That could be your photos. Maybe you just want to have those really beautiful photos and that's all you really care about. Well, hopefully not all you care about, but that's one of the, when it comes to vendors, that's your most important vendor, is you don't mind spending money on your photographer because you want those really beautiful photos for years to come. So thinking through that and understanding what maybe your top 2 or 3 priorities are before you get too deep into planning is really helpful as well, and that'll help when you're building out your budget too, to understand where you are more willing to splurge on some items and where you're willing to save money and maybe skimp out a little bit on. Another piece of advice was to read your contracts thoroughly. Yes, please do this, and I'm glad somebody brought this up because that's something that people don't talk about a ton. Obviously, you're signing a bunch of contracts when you're entering into agreements with every vendor that you have, and I'm hoping that you're reading the contracts when you're signing them at that beginning stage. But from the time you book a vendor to the time of your wedding is likely a year, sometimes longer, so it's good to also revisit those contracts in the month or 2 leading up to your wedding, especially when it's somebody that you are curious about extra hours or just really understanding what their policies are on the wedding day, so that there's no surprises on your wedding day and that you fully understand what you're agreeing to, what you're expecting them to provide and bring to your wedding day, as well as what your responsibilities are as far as maybe it's cleanup for how they want their dishes packed and put away, delivery, pickup, drop off, all of that sort of stuff. You want that to be all squared away and that you fully understand what their processes are so that there's no surprises on the wedding day or afterwards. Another bride said having a list of all of your items that you're bringing to your wedding venue. Super, super important. And any client that I have that has a design package or more full service planning package, I create a list like this so that I understand which items we are getting from which rental company, which items the bride or groom are DIYing and bringing, what items I'm bringing from my inventory, so that everything is listed out, especially when it comes to teardown. Because if you don't have somebody that you're paying to do teardown service, you want to make sure that you understand where everything is coming from and where everything needs to go at the end of the night, and that you have a plan in place for that, because that's the last thing you want to have to deal with on your wedding night, is making sure that things are getting packed up in the right place, or that you even know where stuff belongs or goes to at the end of the night, especially if you have a day of coordinator or a family member that is helping set up on that day, because you likely won't be seeing where things are getting set up and where they're coming from as far as the boxes and the way they need to be packed up and wrapped up and all of that good stuff. So understanding where everything's coming from, having a nice comprehensive list of all those items is going to be super helpful, so that you can either hand that off to your coordinator or hand that off to a family member or somebody at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day, so that at the end of the day they have everything they need to know for cleanup. So another piece of advice, which is a good one, is to just take breaks from wedding planning when you need to. It can get really stressful, especially in the beginning stages when there's so many decisions to be made and you're trying to book all these vendors before they book out, and it can be really exhausting. And if you're getting overwhelmed, this is supposed to be an enjoyable time. It's supposed to be an exciting time, and if you're at a point where wedding planning is making you stressed out or overwhelmed, take a step back, take a break, go for a walk, go for a little mini vacation, staycation, whatever you have to do to get your mind off of it and be able to get back to a place where you're enjoying it, because that's really what you want to be doing. And if it's not enjoyable for you, then what's the point? So it's okay to take breaks when you need to. Wedding planning is a lot of work, but it doesn't need to be something that is on your mind 24/7 up until your wedding day. This one I really love because part of it is something that I say to clients all the time, but things will go wrong, and that's what will make memories. Relax and enjoy. It's important to touch on this because the fact of the matter is, as much as you can plan for your wedding and have plan B's, C's, D's, E's, F's, everything in place for your wedding day, the likeliness that something's going to go wrong anyways is still pretty high. And that doesn't mean that something's going to happen that's going to completely ruin your wedding day. In fact, it's likely going to be something that nobody even notices, or multiple things nobody even notices. And typically it's just, your planner, your coordinator, yourself that would know. But your guests likely are never going to know. It's not going to be something that's going to completely derail your wedding day. And in those instances, it's important to just take a breath and realize it's not that big of a deal at the end of the day. Your wedding was still going to be beautiful, wonderful. You still got married, and try not to stress or overthink any of those small little things that go wrong. I can't tell you how many times I've had mishaps at weddings, and it's just something that happens. And that's what's nice about having a coordinator or somebody there to kind of take care of those things so that you don't have to, because then it's a lot less stressful. They've probably been in that situation before, they've dealt with those things before, and it's just something that has to be taken care of, and you just move on. And I love the part in here where it says that's what makes the memories. I had a wedding last year that was beautiful weather all day long. We had some rain in the morning, and then it cleared up. Ceremony was hot, beautiful, wonderful, and it just stormed like nobody's business for the entire cocktail hour and like 90% of the reception. And when I say storm, I mean like golf ball sized hail coming down in the cocktail hour. And it was one of those things that it could have really put a downer on your wedding, and people could have left and the dance floor would have been non-existent. But the bride and groom just ran out in the middle of the rain and danced, and so all of their guests joined in, and it was honestly, like, to this day, one of my absolute favorite weddings ever, because they really just said, screw it, this is still our wedding day, we're still gonna have a great time, and sure, we didn't want this rain, but we're gonna make the most of it. And it was such a fun night, and one of those weddings that I will never ever forget. Another piece of wedding advice that I really like to share is to take time for yourself. And that means for you and your partner. So on your wedding day, whether it's right after you get married, taking a moment to just really look at each other and realize what you're doing and what just happened, and really take in the day. Because like I've said before, it goes by so fast, and you want to really be able to take some time to be in the moment on your wedding day and have time just the two of you, especially if you're not the type of person that loves big crowds or likes to be the center of attention and in the spotlight. Scheduling in some time to just either sneak away with your partner and take a walk, or just have some sort of glass of champagne, a little toast, just the two of you sometime during your wedding day is something that you'll really be thankful for. Whenever I'm photographing a wedding, I always make sure to schedule in time during the bride and groom photos, or during all of the photos in between during the cocktail hour. And whether we're actually taking pictures or not, I like to just schedule in 15-20 minutes for the bride and groom to have alone time. And maybe this is drinking a glass of champagne and walking through a field. And a lot of times I'll just let them kind of do their thing, and I won't even pose them for photos. And honestly, that makes a lot of really great photos too, because you get those nice candids. But just having that time alone is really, really nice on your wedding day. This last one is one I like to mention to all my clients too, is don't feel obligated to stick to traditions. Obviously, you have a lot of traditions that go into weddings, whether that's your father-daughter dance, your first dance, throwing your bouquet, whatever it may be. If you're not feeling something and you don't want to do it at your wedding, don't do it. There's no point. These days, a lot of wedding traditions are kind of outdated, and a lot of people are opting out of them. So if you don't want to throw your bouquet at your wedding, don't have a bouquet toss. It's not a big deal. Don't overthink it. If something's not speaking to you, or if it doesn't really represent who you and your partner are as a couple, you don't need to have it in your wedding if you don't want to. So hopefully some of that wedding advice will help you on your wedding planning journey. Like I said, I've got more on my blog Ivory in June, and I'll do another video like this sometime soon too, to get more wedding advice, little tidbits in there for you. So hopefully you liked this video. If you did, please like and subscribe to get weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice, and we'll see you next week.